Welcome to Funda CompuPath. This is grade 12 CAT 2025 June paper 1 question paper. If you need to solve the problems that are in this question paper, you may need to find or download the documents that are related to this question paper. Without any waste of time, let's get started. In this video, we are going to do question 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. The instruction says, open the for-shop spreadsheet that contains details of the product sold during April at the gamer's shop. Work in the April worksheet. The shop has a policy which allows a customer to pay off a product on a monthly basis over a 24-month period. The customer will pay an extra amount for a 24-month contract, which is column G. 4.1.1. Insert a function in cell D3 to determine how many customers did not take a 24-month contract. The instruction says, insert a function in cell D3. Where is cell D3? This is cell D3 here. Cell D3. To determine what? To determine how many customers did not take a 24-month contract. They gave us a direction. In other words, we have to focus on column G. Why we need to focus on column G? The heading of column G says extra amount payable on 24-month contract. So it tells us that the rows that are blank here, are those customers who didn't take like an extra amount for a 24-month contract. Is those customers. So where we see figures, then it means these customers have a 24-month contract or extra amount payable on 24-month contract. So now we are in D3. We have to position ourselves in D3. The question says, because it's very important to understand the question, it says insert a function in cell D3 to determine how many customers did not take a 24-month contract. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to say is equals count blank. Count blank. As I've said that we have to focus on column G. Those empty rows, they tell us it's people who did not take a 24-month contract. So that is why, since their rows are blank, that is why we have to use the formula that starts with equals count blank. Then we have to say G6. Why G6? Is because is where the number of customers begin. To where Then we have to go to the end of the, 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 the rows so that we can see where do they end. They end at 46, row 46. Then it means we have to say to G46. Then we close the bracket. Then this formula should tell us how many customers who did not take a 24-month contract. We have 19 customers who did not take a 24-month contract. We are done. Now we have to move to question 4.1.2. Question 4.1.2. Insert a formula in cell H10 to determine how much money Jacob Msibi must pay each month for 24-month contract. Insert a formula in cell H10 to determine how much money Jacob Msibi must pay each month for the 24-month contract. Now we have to go to H10. Here is H10. And the question says, determine how much money Jacob Msibi must pay each month for the 24-month contract. We have to use a formula. We have to say is equal to sum, open bracket, F10 total amount payable for the number of items bought. Then we say plus G10, YG10 is the extra amount payable on 24-month contract. So now we have to determine the monthly payment for 24 months. Then we have to close our bracket and we have to divide. In other words, we have to use the stroke sign or the slash sign to divide by 24 months. By 24 months. Is equals to 127. You press enter, 127. In other words, Jacob Msibi should pay 127.58 cents monthly. We are done. Question 4.2. Use a spreadsheet feature to display the customer name in any green fill color. If a customer bought 3 or more items. In other words, you have to select all the customers. In other words, from A6 until A46. Then you come here, conditional formatting. Then you click new rule. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. Because we want to highlight those customers who have purchased about 3 items. Once you click here, in other words, now we have to use a formula. So which formula should we use? We have to say is equals $, because we want to lock the column, which is column D. We use D6 is equals 3. Then we have to format and change the color to green. You can choose green here. Sometimes it may start here. It may start somewhere like inside the font. Then you just click fill. Then you choose any green of your choice according to the instructions. Then you click OK. Then you click OK again. Now you can see that all those customers who have purchased three items, have been highlighted. That's how you do it. Just remember the steps that you take. You highlight the names only. Don't highlight the heading. Highlight the headings on the names only. You go to conditional formatting, new rule. You click use a formula to determine. Use a formula to determine. The formula that you are going to use is equals $. We use a dollar because we want to lock the column, which is column D. 6 because this is where we start. Then you use greater than sign. Then is equals 3. You use 3 because we want those customers who have purchased like 3 items. That is why we use a greater sign is equals to 3. Then you format it. You choose the color of your choice. You go to fill and you choose the color of your choice. That's how you do it. We are done. Question 4.3, excuse me. The shop will send a notice to a customer with a 24-month contract. The shop will send a notice to a customer with a 24-month contract. Insert a function in cell I6 to display the text notice if a customer has a 24-month contract. Otherwise, the cell must be left blank. Here is I6. And the customer has a 24-month contract because the instruction says if a customer has a 24-month contract, otherwise the cell must be left blank. So now we can see that the customer has 161 here, then it means the customer has a 24-month contract. So this is what we are going to do. Because now we have to create a formula that will show notice. You don't just type notice because you're going to lose those marks. You have to get a formula or you have to apply a formula. Then you are going to click here, I6. So this is the formula that we are going to use. Is equals if is equals if, then our logical test should be G6. Why? Because we want to determine if the customer has a 24-month contract or not. So that is why we use G6, because the customer row is in G6 or is G6. Then we use equal sign, double apostrophe, double apostrophe. In other words, if it's blank, something like that, in other words, it has to be blank. Then you use a semicolon. But if it has a figure, then it has to say notice. Then you close your bracket. Then you enter. Then it writes notice. Why it writes notice is because this customer must get a notice. Why? Because he or she has a 24-month contract. We are done.